Today, I'm speaking with the most fascinating person I had the opportunity to interview. Eric Maddox is the person who led to the capture of Saddam Hussein, and he has developed a methodology about empathy-based listening. Enjoy my conversation with Eric. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meaning podcast. Today is an amazing day. As somebody I have been willing to interview for a long time since I heard him speak the first time for me at an event of EO South Florida. It's the type of people that you might have not heard the name first, but it has a tremendous impact on the world. Eric Maddox is the person who led the team and thanks to whom Saddam Hussein was captured. And he went on to have an amazing life and also to start a methodology called empathy-based listening. We're going to talk about all of that today. Eric, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Eric.
You have an amazing career. You have received prestigious, rewards. I'm just gonna look in some of them here. You've been awarded the Legion of Merit, the National Intelligence Medal of Achievement, the Defense Intelligence Agency Director's Award, and the Bronze Star, which is absolutely amazing. But what is your story? Who is Eric Madogs, and how did you decide one day to join the U.S. Army?
So great question. I'm a kid from Oklahoma, grew up like most any other kid, was going to the University of Oklahoma. Right before I graduated, I had a calling to join the United States military. I thought it'd be cool to be in the infantry, and it was. I loved it. I was a paratrooper, went and I graduated Ranger School. And while I was in the military, I realized they had a foreign language program. I love the military because it challenges you, gives you the opportunity to do things you don't think you can do. So I signed up for Chinese Mandarin. And as a part of that, you've got to become an interrogator, a trained interrogator. I went through the Chinese course, went through the interrogation course. This is in the late 90s, very peaceful time in world history. No expectations of actually doing interrogations, but I was working as an intelligence collection officer against the Chinese government for the United States military. 9/11 occurs. We go to war in Afghanistan. We go to war in Iraq. 3 months into the war in Iraq, I get these unexpected orders to join a Delta Force team to track down everyone on the deck of cards, that infamous deck of cards. Saddam was the ace of spades. I joined the Delta Force team, started my interrogations of the prisoners that they would bring in off their raids, off their missions. And everything that I was taught in the military on interrogations, it wasn't working. We had not been expected to fight wars where there's no uniforms, there's no battlefield. The techniques just wouldn't work. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I've got to figure these people out. What does it mean to be Iraqi and Sunni and Shia? Quite honestly, what does it mean to be a prisoner, right? What does that mean? So I started really just trying to listen, communicate with prisoners. And that's when I kind of discovered that communication, it's not about transferring information from one person to the other, back and forth. What people use communication for, at least subconsciously, is to figure out how much can I trust you? And it's amazing. You would think, well, somebody on the other side of a table in a war zone, you can't trust them at all.
Right.
But the discovery of trust that I realized is not necessarily if we have the same opinions, even if we have the same goals, but simply demonstrating that regardless of where we sit, am I capable of at least understanding what is your perspective? What does this world mean to you? And it's really a challenge because we're born ourselves. We have our own biases. We have our own agenda. But it was this process of saying, if you can put that behind you and seek to understand what it means, this individual, it doesn't even require that you yet get to a conclusion, to a solution, because that level of engagement is empowering to the people that you communicate with. And that empowerment was what I realized. That's the key to get them over, at least willing to have a discussion. can we work together? And I call it empathy-based listening, right? The foundation of communicating to seek to understand, which empowers, which allows us to at least say, can we find a solution? Through 300 interrogations with this Delta Force team, these prisoners became extremely cooperative. I really focused on, what do they need? What can I do for them? As a result of that, they took us up the chain of command. It directly led to the one person I believed knew the exact location of Saddam on my last day in the country of my tour. We captured this individual. He was a bodyguard of Saddam. And I just connected with him. And in less than 2 hours, this bodyguard said, Eric, I know where he is. I'm going to take your team. And by the way, we got to go right now. That night, he took the Delta Force team that I was working with to the exact spider hole. As a result of the capture of Saddam, I was pulled out of the United States Army. I was hired by the Defense Intelligence Agency. I became the first civilian interrogator for the Defense Intelligence Agency. Over the next 10 years, I ended up doing 2,700 interrogations, 8 deployments, prisoners from 25 different countries, all focused on this art of listening. And we hear those words, you got to be a good listener. Mm-hmm. You got to be an active listener. But there is a process to the secret of listening to build, earn trust for the empowerment of those people that we partner with in order that we can get the greatest results.
Awesome. Now, I'd like you to take us through this process, but before we do that, because you're just summarizing the whole story, how did you find out that you were sent to Tikrit in Iraq? How did you find out that you were sent there to start interrogating the people on the deck of cars? Was it something you've been trained for? Was it something, or you just were sent there and then you were told when you arrived? And why you?
Eric, great question. I mean, when we invaded Iraq, I had never actually done an interrogation. See, the United States Army, they require all interrogators learn a foreign language. They taught me Chinese Mandarin. Well, the United States Army thought it was way more important that I be a Chinese intelligence collection officer than be an interrogator. The United States goes to war in Iraq. I'm told, you're never going there. You're intel. You're Chinese Mandarin. I'm living on the West Coast. I'm in California hitting up Chinese researchers and scientists. I get these highly unexpected orders, and they say, by the way, you're going to Baghdad. By myself. I'm not even going with my unit. I'm sent by myself. I'm picked up by the Joint Special Operations Command, the task force responsible for tracking down Saddam. This is Delta Force and the SEALs. This is the United States elite unit. And they said, all right, you're with us. I said, what am I doing here?
Nobody speaks Chinese in Iraq as long as I knew.
They said, Eric, you're former infantry. They said, we got a problem. All of us interrogators for these guys, we're not infantry. We have a team in Saddam's hometown of Tikrit. They want to go on missions and take an interrogator with them on the raids. They said, we don't do that. They said, so we called the Army and we said, give us a list of every single Army interrogator who's former infantry. And oh, by the way, has graduated Ranger School. And they said, Eric, you're the only name on that list.
Oh, wow.
So, Eric, that's how I got sent on this mission to begin with.
So you arrived there, they're telling you what you're doing. And from what you told me, you really developed those 300 interviews. You develop your own way of being using empathy. But correct me if I'm wrong, that's not necessarily how you've been trained. So how did you came up with this methodology and this process instead of trying to the traditional way of interrogating in terms of war?
I think that's a great question. I think the key is it's important to have a somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit. Mm. And like I said, the techniques I was taught did not work. So initially you can go, well, I mean, it's what I'm told to do. Let me just stay with this. But if something doesn't work, why do you keep doing it? But you can't just figure out, okay, this doesn't work. Let me go with plan B. Well, I didn't have a plan B. Right. I didn't know what to do. I said, well, then I have to figure out what's the problem. The only way I can figure stuff out is I have to get information. The only way I can get information is if I start talking to people. Well, I need to talk to prisoners. Talking to these prisoners is when I realized this doesn't have anything to do with them agreeing with our side of the war or them liking me.
Mm-hmm.
They are trying to figure out. The only thing these prisoners, I realized I'm talking to them, the only thing they wanted to figure out is, Eric, do you have the capability to understand where I'm coming from? And I thought, that's hard because we all have biases. I'm a soldier. They're the enemy. So my challenge was to figure out what is the process to remove your biases, your agenda during communications, to listen for what I discovered were the keywords, what I call breadcrumbs, the keywords people drop when they say, if you hear that, and you pick it up and you come discover it towards what it means to me, I know you're listening. So you start picking up these key words, you empower them. And you know what's amazing? The prisoners were the ones that gave me the solutions to the problems. The prisoners were the ones that said, this is how I need your help. And in doing so, they solved all my problems. But it is not a trick. It's not, I'm going to get them to talk and then take the information and use it for myself. It's the empowerment of others. And you cannot empower someone until they know I'm working to address your needs first.
And what were their needs that you could potentially address? Again, the prisoner. So how did you find out that? Especially, I suppose that you also had to work with a translator to interrogate them, or they don't necessarily speak English.
None of them spoke English.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Just what do you think a prisoner's biggest need is?
To be heard?
Come on. You go into that prison right now. You go talk to a prisoner and you say, what do you need? I just need to be heard.
I need to speak to my family. I need to know they're okay. I need them to know I'm okay. I want to get out.
There you go. Let's keep it real simple.
Okay.
The prisoner wants to go home. Right?
Right.
Okay. I take this prisoner. He's captured. I let him walk out the door. First of all, he's going to get shot by a guard. Second of all, he's going to go home. And what's going to happen? Everyone in the community is going to go, that guy's a snitch.
Yeah. He spoke.
Now his entire family's life's in danger. Right? So I can't go to the prisoner and go, I'm going to get you out of here. Because in their mind, they're going, I don't think that's going to work. So how do I address their deeper needs? Yeah, they want to go home. If they want to go home and there's no ramifications against them or their family, how do I do that? Well, guess what? The prisoner's always going to tell me. Prisoners open up to me and say, Eric, I know you want me to take you to this bad guy. If I do, everybody will know. I start listening to them. They go, but I got an idea, Eric. If you'll go over to this part of town, I know some other bad guys. They don't know I know where they are, but I do. If you'll go capture them and your soldiers go straight to the guy you want me to take you to, and I'm in this prison, and you go capture them, and then you go from their house to that bad guy, everyone will think they did it. They'll never know it was me. Right? Now, what does that mean? It means I can't go to my team and say, go get the bad guy. I said, hey, we got to compromise. We've got to go get more bad guys and then go straight to their house. Right? But the point is, he solved my problem of getting the bad guy. Mm-hmm. But you know what he also did? He mostly solved his problem, and he gave me bad guys I did not know about. That's what the empowerment is.
Interesting. And that's how you find out that, if I remember well, Saddam Hussein liked some type of fish that were on. What is the story exactly with that?
Everybody thinks that's the coolest part of the story, and it is fascinating. So on my last days, very last days in Iraq, we captured the son of that bodyguard, the guy who actually took us to Saddam. And the son, he didn't know where his dad was. But talking to him, he kind of opens up and he starts telling me he and his dad's relationship isn't going well. Eric, this interrogation turned into a family counseling session.
Wow.
And this kid's telling me his dad, him, don't do anything like they used to do when the boy was little. I said, what they used to do? And he said, we used to go fishing. He said, my dad and I, that dad doesn't take me fishing anymore. And initially I'm like, if your dad is in the middle of a war, maybe we ought to cut him some slack. But I asked him, I said, where do they go fishing? The boy said, well, Eric, they fish along the Tigris River. They built a fish pond next to the river. They fish on the river next to the pond. Eric, why in the world are you going to build a pond during the middle of a war? But I knew one of the early interrogations I did, we captured the chef of Saddam Hussein, and he said Saddam loved this one dish. It was a fish dish called mazgoof. And if you can't go to the market and get fish for your brutal dictator boss, you might build a fish pond.
Wow.
So from this communication with this son, having no idea where his dad was, it led us to a fish pond, which captured fisherman who was cousin of the deputy of the bodyguard. We captured the deputy takes us to the bodyguard takes us to Saddam.
Amazing.
But anybody without empathy, not sympathy, I've never had sympathy for a prisoner, without empathy, would go to the boy and say, you do know where your dad is. Take us. No. And they won't get off that because that's their goal, their agenda. It's not the boys. The boy wanted to unload about the poor relationship he was having with his dad.
Amazing.
But that empowered the boy to communicate that, which gave me the information I need to take the next step.
How long did you stay there to do those 300 different interrogations?
A little over 5 months.
So for 5 months, you're interrogating 300 people, which is a lot.
Mm-hmm. It is a lot.
How do you collect your notes? How do you take notes? How do you make sure you're going back to, I think that interview 72 and I'm now interview 213. Somebody told me something. How do you analyze those notes and are able to go back to that?
So another great question. And it's not like I have this database in my brain that's just right. Open-ended. The key is this: when we listen to someone for their story and we can remove how we see the story, we get a clarity of a picture. The clarity that your brain is able to absorb any picture determines the extent to which you can keep it in your reserve, in your database. So then if I say I want a clarity of picture with how the world matters to this prisoner, right? Then you can actually not have to receive all the information. I don't have to fight against the biases of my paint, of my brain. You're actually storing less data. So I don't want to pretend that I can remember everything. I just remember what people would say, what matters? Well, what does matter? What matters is how they see the world. So for me, it's easy. It's 300 little snapshots, not 300 encyclopedias.
So you managed to, thanks to you, Saddam Hussein was arrested. Then you going back to, so you went from West Coast to Iraq, back to Washington in the office of Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense.
Yes.
You're sitting there, you're about to meet the Secretary of Defense. What are you thinking about? What's going into your mind?
Well, at first, I was excited. I was like, cool. That's a big deal. Yeah. Secretary of Defense. I was excited. Well, I'm in line. Like, they have all these admirals and generals. We're like getting in a line to walk in this guy's office. I didn't know admirals and generals got nervous, right? And these guys are nervous. They're panicking. They're probably panicking because they realize they're about to drop a staff sergeant in here to talk and they don't know what I'm going to do. But as I'm going in front of me was the head of the DIA. It was an Admiral Jacoby. And I kind of leaned up and everyone's nervous. I mean, really nervous. And I said, sir, did I do something wrong? He leans over and he said, don't worry about it, Staff Sergeant Maddox. He said, in this office, everybody's done something wrong. So I just went in there and I said, you know what? I know what I did. I'm confident. Just tell them what you did. So I thought it was a great experience.
And that's when he asked you to start putting this program together.
Oh yeah, he was turned to this whole group and he said, "Why are we borrowing Staff Sergeant Chinese Mandarin linguists from Los Angeles to do interrogations?" He said, "I want my own team, but Staff Sergeant Maddox will be my first one." So I did. I got the offer to be the first civilian interrogator for the Defense Intelligence Agency. I took the job.
I cannot even fathom how many people and how many lives you've saved by developing this technique that I'm sure brought a lot of information. So, and I'm not going to go there because I don't want to ask you any question, then you have to kill me afterwards. So for after the answer, but
if I tell you something I'm not supposed to, they don't kill you, they kill me. So
right. But I'm so impressed with what you've done, Eric. That's phenomenal. So you stayed another 10 years. Is that correct? And put the system together. So the entrepreneur in you, or the person who's always looking for new challenge, what click and what is the moment when you say, you know what, maybe I should start doing something else and look to do something? What happened?
Sure. So the Defense Intelligence Agency, they allowed me to continue to interrogate. Well, they also said, go publish your book, your story. Mm-hmm. And by the way, we're so happy about this. This is such a good thing for the DIA. You can go give speeches and they can pay you. So I'm living this double life of Intel collection officer and DIA and published author. People start asking me to give speeches. And as I do, I'm telling my story, I realize what people most want to know is, how does this apply to me? So as I'm working with these business professionals, so many of them are in business development, partnerships, negotiations. And they're telling Eric, here's my problem. Here's what I've got to do. And I said, it's very clear to me, you're communicating for the wrong reason. You're communicating, you're speaking to transfer information, to influence somebody. I say, you're listening to gather information to help you make better decisions. I said, the first thing that matters, the most important thing that matters, you need to communicate to tell this person, I do want to know what it means to be you. Before we get started on this deal, I must understand exactly what it means to be you, because when you do that, you empower. And when you empower, they want to come to you and say, you know, very few people do that. I'm partnering with you. Then we're going to get down to business. Then we're going to show them your value proposition. But think about it, Eric. When somebody goes into sales, on a sales call, they have a product, they have a service. They show up, build a little rapport. And what do? I know what you need. Here's why I'm good. Here's why you should use me. Here's against the benchmark. Here's what the competition. And here's my, oh yeah, you want to pressure me on price? Yeah, let's lower my price so that I'll get your job. What they first want to understand is, I don't care how good you are. Do you get me? Once you get them, they say, we're partnering together. We'll figure it out.
How do you do that with somebody that you've never met?
Well, when you meet somebody, it doesn't matter how much you know them. They don't care anything about your background yet. They simply want to know, are you the type of person that's seeking to understand me? You can say, well, it's the type of person that listens. No. It's the type of person that listens for what? Seeking to understand. There's tons of great listeners. What do they listen for? You know what most people listen for? They say, I want to figure out what this person needs and sell them on my solutions. I've got, you may have the best solutions in the world. They don't want to know that yet. They want to know, do you listen to me to get me? Once you've established that, they're going to tell you what they want, what they need, and they're not going to ask you about your price. They're just going to say, hey, come over here and do it. So it doesn't matter how well you know them.
Yeah,
once they figure out you're that type of person, they're going to make sure you get to know them.
Is that the first step of your process that you were talking a little bit earlier on?
So the first step in the process is to understand that we have what trust is. People really have a misunderstanding kind of what trust is. And so what I break it down into what I call the influence equation, right? Because you think, what's the key to trust? Well, the key to trust is get somebody that you can influence, not in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody trusts you and it's earned, it's real trust, they follow you, right? That's influence. And so the influence equation, the key is that we have to understand what is our value proposition. We're going to add that with the level of respect that we show this individual, I mean, the worthiness we see in them. Then you put that into the power of this empathy-based trust. And then the key of the equation is you divide it all by F, which is fear, our fear in this relationship. What do we fear? We fear not making the connection. We fear that we're not going to get the words, the right words. We fear we don't understand what they really need. So the whole understanding the influence equation is the start point. Then you got to deal with, well, what are my mental distractions? And I have 6 categories of listening distractions. Then we got to pick up the breadcrumbs. There's 10 categories of those keyword statements. They're like, make us the Jedis. And then we got to figure out, once I get on their stage and I've earned the trust, what do we focus on? Right? So it's a 6-step process.
So when you have that approach, the most important thing I would suppose is to be able to focus and listen and understand what the person is in front of you. So for somebody like me with ADD, what are some advice in terms of following your process?
So you've got ADD, right? That's a problem. You're scattering around. Now, I'm going to argue, regardless of your level of being able to keep attention or have ADD, you have priorities to which guide your focus, right? If your cell phone, if you receive a text and it's from a huge client, you may even drop off this call. You might even start staring. There are priorities. So we at first have to say, what's priority number 1 in a relationship? If it's building the highest level of trust to gain influence, then what do we listen for? Because you're right. We know that when it comes to listening, the brain cannot multitask. We can't think about one thing and listen to another. So all we have to listen for, what I call breadcrumbs. They're words, they're statements that somebody makes in every single sentence. So if I can get you to understand, when somebody makes a statement, they're dropping a breadcrumb. What's that breadcrumb? It's the word or term or phrase they most want us to hear. And if you know what these breadcrumbs look like, every time somebody makes a statement, it's a hunt right on that statement. There's the breadcrumb. Boom. Next statement. There's the breadcrumb, right? We've got to be able to keep that focus immediately in front of us. Because if somebody makes a statement, I say, Eric, what was the breadcrumb? And you go, I was thinking about what I'm doing later tonight. Are you kidding me? You can't move forward.
No.
Breadcrumb, statement, breadcrumb, statement, breadcrumb. It's right in front of us. Because we've got to create that habit. Once we see the rewards of picking up the breadcrumbs, we see, this is what I wanted. This is what I've always wanted, was maximum positive influence in every single relationship. Why on earth then? It would be like saying, why would I not take a bite of this great food? I'm starving. Why would I run over here and start, building a fence? We've got to know what end goal are we serving and what's the immediate step to get it. That's how we remove the distractions to keep the focus.
Very good. By the way, my phone is off. So even if the greatest client on earth is calling, there's nothing more important for me during this time to speak with you. So that's how I focus. I'm going back to, the audience, the business owners, people in the meetings and event industry. At some stage, every one of us entrepreneur has to sell something in order to have a business. So what I've noticed is the same thing as in LinkedIn, when people ask you for a connection, the next thing you know is that they're selling you something. And I'm just like, really? This is how you would do that? So I understand what you're saying about the process, about the trust, about the empathy listening, about looking at some of the keywords. How do I train for that? How do I train so that it's becoming like almost a second nature, that I'm not pretending or trying to actually look for that, but it's just coming to me almost naturally?
I think the first part of the training needs to be, you have to understand, to build this level of trust takes approximately 3 minutes. Now, can you give me 3 minutes to start every conversation? Right? And then we have to say, but what's the end goal? You give me 3 minutes, you're walking on what I call their stage. You're building a level of trust that they say, I want to partner with you. Now, if you give me 3 minutes of empathy-based listening in a conversation, I'm going to promise you this person that you've built this trust with is going to turn to you and say, I have problems. I have needs. How can you deal with them? That's all we want with our LinkedIn connections and our sales calls. The problem is we think, I don't have much time. I start this conversation with a prospect and I've got to figure out, you know what? I'm going to figure out what their needs are ahead of time. And as soon as I start talking, I'm going to go to solutions for those needs to convince them I'm right for them. They don't care if you're right for them. They do not care. They have to see you demonstrate that I'm trying to figure you out. Once you cross that hurdle of trust, they're coming to you. The degree to which they will come to you will be shocking. So we just have to understand, what most people do is they try to solve the problem of showing your value. They don't care your value, right? They need to understand. They need to see that you're seeking to understand. Then they're going to open the floodgates.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's, would you be willing to give it 3 minutes?
Right.
Give 3 minutes and then come and go, that's amazing. How do I do that again? Let's make it 2. Let's make it with everybody. It's 3 minutes.
Those 3 minutes, I guess, most important thing, correct me if I'm wrong, would be to ask questions. No.
We can ask questions all you want.
Okay. So
right now we are in the middle of this conversation. If I sat right here and said, hey, Eric, what are your plans for the holidays? You're going to go, man, Eric, you'd say, stay focused. That's not what we're doing. Yes, we have to ask questions. We have to ask questions of what they want us to ask. What everybody wants is you to discover on their breadcrumbs. You give me any statement from a prospect, I will tell you the exact breadcrumb and the exact question to ask, period. It's not debatable.
Regardless of the industries.
Regardless of the industry, regardless of their stigma towards you as a salesperson, regardless of their experiences in your past. I will say it may take more than 3 minutes. They've had a bad experience with you or a bad experience with people in your industry. If you're a door-to-door salesman, we've got more work to do than if you're a hot referral of an inside trader and your parents and neighbors have all said, this person is just money in the bank, right? Mm-hmm. Your value proposition is just more locked in than if you're a door-to-door salesperson. Even if you're a door-to-door salesperson, the person is going to give you breadcrumbs. How you demonstrate picking those up is what they're going to go, you know what? And watch, you'll see these things like, I didn't even want to answer the door today. Matter of fact, I was about to yell at you. You know, I'm not saying I'll buy anything, but I'll at least listen to you. Whatever. They're not listening to you. You're listening to them and they like it.
Amazing. What I see and observe in many cases in our industry is that people, especially business owners, and I'm talking about independent planners, people like that, like I did for many years. We focus on the logistics. We focus to show the customer that we're great at executing the logistics, where at the end of the day, they take it as a given. And then we wonder why they're not listening to us or why we're just there to take orders instead of trying to find out what is their competition doing or the challenge that they have. So what are your advice for us in terms of listening, building trust, and focusing on what really matters for the people we're trying to engage with?
Okay, great question. I'm going to give my background and say this year, 2021, I will have done 145 keynote events, presentations, right? Exactly the world that you're living in. First way I want to start and say, why do we focus on logistics? That's your agenda. I got Eric. People say, I got to know these things, Eric. Logistics matters to you. To you, it matters. But to the client, what matters? They're hiring you. They're taking a risk that they're putting it's not the money. They're putting a risk that you're going to make them look stupid, that you're going to be deemed a waste of time. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody cares about the price, right? They do eventually, but their main concern. So what we want to know first is, what is the experience that they want the audience to have when they leave the, first of all, overall event? It could be a 3-day event. Let's get that theme. Eric, right now, and they'll say, Eric, right now in our industry, here's what we're facing. We're bringing everybody in for the annual event because we want to get them re-energized, or we want to get them to pivot. Boom. If it's re-energized, that's one presentation. If it's pivot, that's another. If it's dealing with COVID, virtual communication, they're going to tell you, right? Then say, with understanding my background, what do you want your audience to experience when I drop the mic? Eric, we were thinking, boom, boom, boom. That right there, you've just said, all I care is what matters to you. They want the experience of the whole conference, and they want the experience that you're delivering to them. And you'll start hearing things like, Eric, I don't care if you go first or last, but what we were thinking was, that's the breadcrumb. Whatever comes out of their mouth next is my focal point. All I care about is, what experience do they want to receive? They want their people to receive. Think once you get into that room, they love working with, they're like, this guy gets me. He cares about us, not who's picking me up at the airport. Do I get 2 nights stay in a hotel? Do I have to? That doesn't matter yet. It'll matter later. Let's get to this thing first, right? Just think of the experience before. Maybe if they're at the point in this process where their boss or their board isn't convinced you're the right person. Eric, we're still making some decisions. We've got some different ideas. So I appreciate that. There's a lot of great presenters. What do you need from me to help them determine if I'm the right fit? What would really help? Boom. Just go to them.
Amazing. Love it. I was going to say it's simple because I understand it. And if I understand it, anybody can understand it. But it's so efficient because that's the natural part. You're not trying to learn something. It's focusing on the other person, which I love. Now, you said that this year you've given a lot of keynotes. I suppose many of them were on Zoom.
Right here. This is my studio, right? This is so.
And for those listening, with the beautiful awards and decoration in the back, which is, again, absolutely amazing. I prefer to be face-to-face when I have to convince somebody. So what are your advice on that today? And I see you going like this. So you have, I guess, a lot to say about that. I feel more comfortable negotiating or speaking with somebody face-to-face than on Zoom. And whether I like it or not, I have to adapt to the way of the world. So what are your advice for that?
I appreciate that you prefer that. Let's at least look at the mindset that there's a potential that we can gain as much connection, build that trust, Zoom, as we can face-to-face. Let's just say it's out there. That's a possibility. So then say, well, then what's the problem? So I'll ask you, why? Why do you feel better face-to-face, Eric, than Zoom?
Because I see the nonverbal better, because I see who's around, because I can see the decoration in their office better, in their environment. I can see if they're focused or if they're looking at something else. And I feel I have a better connection.
Okay. Let me ask you, you and I talking right now, you can see me. What do you feel you're missing from this visual scene that you're getting from me? What's missing?
Maybe to see better the books that are behind you, the setting in your office, that I can try to understand better what's matter to you.
Okay. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's the case. I'm gonna argue and at least ask you to open your eyes to this. Problem with virtual communication. It's not actually what we're missing from them. It's our disconnect from this sort of responsibility that we have to focus in somebody's presence that allows us to be distracted in our world, in our office, in our space. I mean, I cannot tell you how many people in a virtual communication feel that it's okay to do this. Right? I'm tapping over like I'm looking on my cell phone. Are you kidding me? I mean, are you kidding me? You would never do that face to face. Guess what? You just lost trust. And we might be blaming that on face to face proximity when in all actuality, we screwed that up. Right? The other thing that we do is we back meetings back to back to back on virtual. We don't do that face to face. If we have a meeting face to face, you know, we may have to deal with traffic and this, but we tend to isolate these face to face meetings. Now, if you have a meeting 5 minutes after this, your mind starts diverting towards attention there, right? Now, we also deal with, I'm uncomfortable looking into the camera.
Oh, very. Well, I'm looking at you on my double screen with your picture in mine, and the camera is up there, so I never know where to focus. So now I'm just watching your image, but you might feel that I'm not watching you.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like I'm watching you?
Yes, you are.
I am staring down, trying to get inside your soul, man, because that's all that matters.
Right.
That is everything. So I agree. It's a change, right? It's a different change. What I would say is let's explore knowing or believing that we can get equal trust and never stop ourselves and saying, it's just never going to happen. Take that challenge to say, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to get that connection virtually?
So what you're saying, it's more a mindset before anything else.
100% mindset. I mean, if you think about it, Eric, I could have just said, interrogation techniques don't work. It's what I was taught. It must be the best way. What I prefer is prisoners from a battlefield in a uniform with a smoking gun and a chain of command.
Boom.
Well, we didn't have that. Guess what? I like my situation better now. Why? I can get these guys home.
Yeah. I
can get a prisoner released in less than 24 hours. Why? Because they're not part of an army. They're not in a chain of command. They don't have years of loyalty to, Adolf Hitler or whoever. These are new recruits. They're not committed fully, and they think they are. They're like dedicated to certain causes. But the recency, the circumstantial plausibility when I can get them released and there's not going to be ramifications, it actually allows for better trust building than the old way. So again, just that mindset of how do we take opportunity in this forced virtual communication? We can do this. How do we get better than it was before?
Love it. Talking about getting better than it was before, I'm sure you're always learning and improving and looking at the different experiences. What is your view of what you want to be doing in the future? What are your dreams now?
My goal, my company goal, is maximum positive impact on the world. Well, I want to make maximum positive impact on people's lives. It's what I want to do. I'm no way saying that's the selfless goal. It makes me feel good about myself. Mm-hmm. My talents are the ability to build trust in verbal communication. So I can tell people what I'm good at, or I can train them so that they can be good at this, knowing the results are maximum positive impact in all relationships. So for me, it is finding those avenues, those platforms to be able to train and mentor as many people as possible on something that I believe they'll result in them going, my relationships are better with everybody. As a result of that, I feel really good about myself and I get paid a lot of money. So I, by no means I'm saying, oh, I'm the most selfless person in the world. Look at me. I'm just doing, no. It's what I love to do. Because I love when somebody goes, Eric, I almost lost my marriage. And I realized I'm a bad listener. Eric, I had not had a good relationship with some of my children 10 years. And I wasn't listening to them. And I didn't get it. What I love is that people say, Eric, it's not that I'm willing. I didn't know what to do different. You showed me this vehicle I didn't know existed. And then I want to teach them how to drive it. And really, I just want them to come back and go, that changed my life. That's my goal.
That's amazing. And you have a number in mind, number of people you want to impact, number of countries you want to be talking to, or?
Yeah, all of them. All of them.
Yep, absolutely. So, Eric, I don't know what to say to everything you say. It makes so much sense. And in the meantime, I haven't heard many people. Actually, I've never heard anybody, as a matter of fact, putting into practice what they've learned into their professional life, and then helping others, whether it's on their private life and their professional life. How do people get in touch with you?
Just reach out to me. It's very easy. Just info@ericmaddox.com. Hit me up on ericmaddox.com.
Which is your website, right?
It's my website. If you want to make this better for yourself personally, I coach. If you want to train your company, I train. If you want to present this to your clients, we can put a presentation together. All I ask is get ready to open up, because I'm not coming in if we're just going to do it halfway. One thing, I don't do a ton of marketing. I don't do a ton of advertising. It's word of mouth. You bring me in, we have one goal, maximum positive impact. I want you to tell me what that looks like. And if we don't achieve that, we have failed, and I will accept that failure. So if you want to give me a call, let's go. But do not come in and say, Eric, I want you to coach me, but I don't have time to. I'm so busy. Cool, stay busy. When this becomes priority number one, call me.
Awesome. Eric, thank you so much for taking the time today. Again, I've learned a ton listening to you. I absolutely love what you're doing and who you are and what you've done for this country, for the world. So it's been an honor, and I look forward to listening to you more and to seeing you face to face, hopefully next year.
All right. I look forward to it as well. Thank you.
Eric, thank you so much for spending the time with me and sharing all your experience. Thank you for what you've done for this country and for the world. Absolutely fascinating. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get in touch with me, please go on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group, www.eventbusinessformula.com/group. And if you had any value listening to this podcast, please share it with your network. Thank you.